video. Mysteries as old as mankind. Witchcraft. Talking dogs.
Run? Where?
It's the all-new, fully animated movie, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost.
Ghost hunting's our specialty.
I'm a hex boy, and I'm going to put a spell on you. Scooby-Doo and the Hex Girls, the second in our trilogy, made and released a year after the last. Even though I consider Witch's Ghost to be not that far behind Zombie Island in terms of quality, its production was significantly rockier. The first film was seen as a one-off experiment, something WB commissioned almost on a whim. As such, the creative team had a lot of autonomy that shines through in the final project. Witch's Ghost, however, is a follow-up to a big success. More eyes were on the team, more cooks squeezing their way into the writer's room, more people trying to get an easy credit that looks good. There was a lot of tension because of this. Not only did the Zombie Island team feel insulted that making such a hit was rewarding them with less control, there was also unsurprisingly a lot of tug-of-war regarding the use of scary material. You know, despite the more mature tone being one of the first film's biggest source of praise. The tension was so bad that Leopold left the franchise after its release. Still, let's get into it and see how they did. I refuse to acknowledge the absolutely dire cover of the theme by Billy Ray Cyrus. We're skipping it. So, immediately we sadly start to see the old formula begin to peek its head back into the franchise. It's still the same older gang from before, but the ghost hunting show angle has just been dropped completely, which sucks because I loved it. There's also no longer a wrap around the plots, that element of them being reunited. They're just back to travelling around at random.
Maybe you should try getting a job.
Good road trip vibes this time at least. The gang arrive in a small town called Oakhaven, just in time for their autumn festival. We're very much taking what works from the backdrop of the last film and sticking with it, because once again we have this quaint, isolated setting with a history that gives it a dark undercurrent. This case being the burning of accused witches, though we can already feel the writers being held back a bit, as we're only told about it rather than shown.
Ben's ancestor, who was persecuted as a witch way back in 1657.
Unjustly persecuted. Sarah Ravencroft was a medicine woman who practiced natural healing and was unfairly accused because of her eccentric ways.
Just like the Salem witch trials.
The gang are here after being invited by Ben Ravencroft, a famous horror author. Think Stephen King but without the child. They're mostly going because Velma is a huge sim for Tim Curry, but, you know, who isn't?
Scooby-Doo.
The film branches off the previous eerie southern Louisiana vibe with a spooky New England feel, perfect for the theme of witches and ghosts, very Sleepy Hollow-esque. Real talk, all these films are so goddamn cozy. Not knocking digital animation, of course, some amazing things are being done with it nowadays, but I just don't think they'll ever quite recapture that feel traditional animation had. I would love to grab a coffee and read in Velma's bookshop, or eat gumbo in the gang's van in Louisiana. Not long after being in Oakhaven do they hear that the town's being haunted by the ghost of Ben's ancestor, a woman burnt alive by the town for being a witch. Though, instead of being scared and leaving as they usually would in the original show, the townspeople are cashing in hard. Deciding to take on the case despite the mayor's protests, we actually see a nice increase in detective work.
Ah, young love.
Lucky for you, I'm a dog lover.
I appreciate that we get more clues than we did in Zombie Island, and we spend a lot more time on the investigative legwork. For instance, they all go their separate ways and follow different leads and suspects to figure out what's been going on.
This mayor's one busy guy. Ugh.
It's here that they meet the Hex Girls, a goth band who pretend to be vampire witches for their stage personas.
Like, hi girls.
Owie, wowie! Baby wants mommy. Make it dirty.
I don't see it said anywhere, but I always thought of them as a throwback to when Hanna-Barbera would throw bands into a lot of their cartoons. They did it so many times. Now, if you know anything about this film, you know about this band. I don't think they were talked about much when the film first released, but they had a boom in popularity on the internet years later. Mostly due to thirsty dudes, but also from people who genuinely liked the designs and their songs. It would even appear in an episode of Mystery Inc., the only other appearance to this date.
The Hex Girls have appeared many times throughout the years.
For this film, they're here to be red herrings, to provide the soundtrack diegetically, to eventually be the Deus Ex Machina to fix everything, and to even add to the romantic tension between Fred and Daphne left over from the last film.
Thorn seems like the leader. Let's follow her.
Are you sure you're not just stuck on Thorn, Freddy?
As characters, they're the Swiss Army knife of plot devices. Speaking of red herrings, it's not long before it's revealed that the gang were actually right. Unlike last time, there isn't any ghost. The whole thing was a hoax set up by the town to increase revenue for the festival, capitalising on both Ben's fame and the legend of his murdered ancestor. Fucking assholes. When I talked about too many people trying to have a hand in this project, this was one of the larger points of contention. I get the vibe the new people WB forced in didn't even watch the first film because they wanted the story to end here, reasoning, Scooby-Doo, you can't not have it be fake, besides it's less scary this way. These writers were not without power, so the plot points stuck. Still, the OGs wisely understood how anticlimactic that would be, and circumvented the plan by rewriting the script to add on a third act, taking place after this revelation, saving the entire picture in my opinion. The whole film, Ben Ravencroft has been whining about finding his ancestor's book to clear her name.
She even kept a journal of all the patients she cured with her herbal remedy.
Handmade nails, horseshoes, farm equipment.
How about a book? But never found anything. That book could finally prove Sarah's innocence. You know how long I've been searching for Sarah's journal.
That's all we found. No bones.
No book?
I gotta find her book. Shut up! In a nice example of that increased focus on detective work, we're shown that a buckle found earlier was in fact the book's seal, pointing them where to dig it up. You probably didn't piece that together, but the fact you could have is what's important. So, like Zombie Island, it's time for the big twist. Unsurprisingly, the character voiced by Tim Curry turns out to be the nasty bad man.
It's a spell book.
You don't hire this voice and not make it say crazy shit.
And since Sarah's blood runs in my veins, I guess that makes me a warlock.
I could also go off theorising what's canon in Scooby-Doo, considering the reuse of the 13 Ghosts chest design for the book, but I'll spare you. It's just a nice little reference. When Ben turns bad, it's like the cuffs are off for the animators. They really go ham. I like a lot of the first 2/3. What it lacks in bombast and scares, it makes up for with charming character interactions and a genuine air of mystery. It is this last act though, the one that the team went over production's head to make, where it really feels like a film-worthy plot. There might be something to be said about how the commentary on the mistreatment of Wiccans is kind of erased when it's revealed that the victim actually was an evil witch. Had the film actually ended with the villagers just exploiting the memory of a dead, innocent woman for profit, yeah, the core message probably would have been stronger. But I can't hate that this is here. Kind of being antithetical to the film's moral probably came from it being a sneaky addition after the fact, but it's just so much fun. It does go on a bit too long and is significantly more comical than the last film, especially this big turkey. I didn't get a lot of laughs out of him, but it adds a much needed climax to the film. Ravencroft may not be as memorable as the zombies or the cat people, but goddamn is Tim Curry having so much fun. It's hard not for it to rub off on you.
This isn't one of your silly little mysteries. You can't solve me so easily.
In a perfect world, they probably would have merged these two endings into something that was a bit more complementary and coherent. But I think the team did really well, especially considering the behind-the-scenes troubles. After a nice scene of the gang working together to get the book to Thorn, the witch is sealed back in her prison. Ben is also sucked off and burned, and no one seems to care.
Ben Ravencroft's last book is one the world will never buy.
But like it would have been a hot bestseller.
Damn! The film then wraps up pretty quickly, with the mayor lamenting that they now need a new attraction.
You still have the Hex Girls.
Oh, no offense, girls, but I think we need a bigger attraction.
Burn.
Cue cute, goofy goth rock song, and we're at the end.
Wind, fire, and air. We may look bad, but we don't care. Nature is precious gift.
We're eco-goths.
You serious?
I feel like I might have been a bit more critical this time, but the film is still very much worth a watch. They balanced the stuff they weren't allowed to carry over from Zombie Island as best as they could, making it a tamer but pretty interesting follow-up. It's not got the same depth to it as the last film or even Alien Invasion has, which actually might be why people gravitate towards the pure sex girls so much. The true villains are kinda forgettable, but despite no numbers existing, the quality must have been reflected in the sales again, as it was yet again successful enough to repeat the formula a third time.